So I'll share my screen in a sec. Yeah. Okay. So here we go. So as earlier introduced, I'm Abdulaziz Adiga. I do front-end development, front-end engineering basically. So today I'll be speaking on how and why people should contribute to open source. So I have been led to believe that in the audience we're going to have absolute beginners, we're going to have um, intermediates, and we're going to have seniors in our midst. So I kind of tailored the presentation to be able to fit in those three categories. Yeah. So moving on, I would just like most of on where we met. Most of my friends call me Stark. Yeah. So, but my first name is Abdulaziz. Obviously, I'm a front-end engineer and I have experience building scalable web and mobile apps. Currently, I'm at UCast.xyz where we work with podcasters. We work with podcasters and brands basically to work. Sorry, one sec, please. I need to take a break. Sorry. Yeah, sorry for that delay. So currently I'm at UCast and I do full stack development there, and there we get to merge different brands with different podcasters for advertisement or promotional purposes. So sorry, can everyone hear me to confirm? Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah,
We can
okay.
hear you.
So far so good. We've had brands as big as Empire Records and some other ones, just to say. Yeah, so that's a bit about me. Obviously, I can't say everything wrong, but that's just a brief introduction. So to open the floor, what is open source? Basically, open source software. Yeah, I'm gonna start with that. Open source software is a code that is published publicly, such that anyone can use, see, or modify the code for their needs. Yeah. Then these codes are usually published on GitHub or GitLab. Those are the most common ones, though we have other sources, like other methods in which people do these collaborations. Yeah. So these codes are usually published on GitHub or GitLab so that more people can see and interact with the code. Yeah. So you must have been hearing of open source, open source. It's likely some people's first time here, and you might have just been hearing of open source. So basically, open source is a form of code system, you understand, that has been put in place to just bring people together to work on different things. So moving on, what is Hacktoberfest? It's kind of tied to open source. I can even say they are twins. I can practically say they are twins. But then a month-long celebration of open source projects, their maintenance and the entire contributors. So basically, open source is celebrated openly in October, and it is tagged Hacktoberfest. Usually, we would normally have lots of hackathons and problem-solving programs like that. So togetherness in the tech ecosystem. Understand? So Hacktoberfest is a month-long celebration of open source projects, and I already explained the open source projects to be a kind of open between individuals from different backgrounds, or yeah, different fields, or even the same field. But the emphasis is on bringing people together, is on the community, sharing knowledge and working together to make good stuff work. So moving on, the event is all about giving back to the community and celebrating all things open source. Here, I already mentioned that. So yeah, moving on to the next thing, the goal of open source. Yeah, the goal of open source basically is to just remove the barrier between innovators and promote free exchange of ideas within a community to drive creative advancement. So like I said earlier, emphasis on the community, bringing people together. We have people that are very good with front end, back end, DevOps, all of that shit, project management. Sorry, I cursed. We have people from different backgrounds. Some are in India, some are like halfway across the world, but you can collaborate, share ideas, very cool stuff through open source. Yeah, so I'm gonna move on to the next topic. So I've had this question a couple of times, and when I nearly had the word open source, I also asked this question like, who can contribute to open source? Is it just limited to designers or developers or senior developers, or you know, is it just limited to a certain group of people? But from my understanding, open source is open to anyone. You understand? So far, you have something valuable to offer to that particular project. You understand? And a particular skill set that is needed on one particular open source project might not be relevant on another, just depending on what the open source project is all about. So usually they are usually pieces of software, but from the looks of things, we have other forms of open source projects which are on, and from there you get to understand that it doesn't all have to be about code and all of that. So from this particular slide, you can see that developers obviously can contribute to open source because they get to write codes on to develop different features or different kinds of softwares. Yeah, then technical writers too can participate in open source contributions in the sense that they can write detailed tutorials or how to blogs on how to use that particular piece of software or software solution. Yeah. So designers too can come into the process of open source in the sense that they could do they could contribute nice logos or do brandings that would further make the piece of software appealing, because first of all, the basic idea behind open source is collaboration. So say we have we have about 100 people trying to build a definitely have to contribute different things. Everyone cannot contribute code. So if you're a designer on that particular project, you could just come in from your own area of expertise. Yeah, project managers too, because obviously you would need some sort of coordination and managing people and resources or assigning things to different people. So project managers too can contribute to open source projects. Then animators, like I said earlier, a particular skill set that is needed on one project might not be necessarily needed on another open source project, but so far you have a skill that is valuable. Sometimes content creators even contribute to open source project in the sense that they likely just do translations of say Arabic to English. You understand? So basically, it's not just all about code, front end, back end, all of that. No, there's a whole lot more to open source was developed foster the spirit of collaboration between the tech communities that we have, both local and international. Yeah. So moving on, same for illustrators too. Yeah. So moving on, these are useful links to where you could see projects to work on if you're looking to get involved with open source. Here on GitHub, you could find different. In fact, they have vast repositories that you could contribute to. Understand? But then you likely have to take some factors into consideration. But I would later highlight those factors. So on github.com/explore, you can find lots of repositories. You just have to filter out the one that exactly fits your own skill set and stuff. Then Figma community for our designers, product designers, branding, all of that, illustrators. We can all test that one way or the other. That we've been able to benefit from the Figma community. At the same time, some of us have actively been contributing to Figma community. That way, you're able to like create resources that other people can leverage on. It could be illustrations, it could be icons, it could be anything. It could be templates for different things, templates for landing pages. You could create awesome, like 10 samples of awesome landing pages. It could just be one. But the fact that it creates value, people can always leverage on it. That's where the spirit of open source comes in. Understand? Excuse me. So Hacktoberfest, like I said earlier, is the celebration of open source. So there's this particular website, hacktoberfest.com. Yeah, you could check there or just check /participation to see more on different steps to get started with open source. Or if you're looking to participate, maybe contribute to a repo, if you're a mid-level, senior, or junior developer looking to interact or participate in the ongoing Hacktoberfest, which is a celebration of open source. You could check Hacktoberfest. So open source design.net. Here there are tasks of particular websites. And so you just get to scroll through, then find which one you fit in. You could be a mid-level designer or a beginner designer looking to get his or her feet wet with production apps or software. So after learning a little bit, you could volunteer and just do some awesome stuff with awesome people around the world. And who knows what might come next after that. You could get like the possibilities are just endless. You understand? Creating value. If you're looking for mediums to create value, put yourself out there and all of that. Open source is the perfect medium to do that. So opensourcedesign.net is a very useful link. Though, excuse me, though there are lots of other mediums to get yourself into open source, but these are the ones that I found very, very useful. So moving on, in open source, you need to understand that there are different roles. Yeah, there are usually different roles when it comes to open source. And to get started, you need to understand what these roles are or which person falls under what role. So we have the author, which is the first, which is the person who creates the project. It could be a design project, it could be a code project, but most times when people say author of an open source project, they most likely mean a software product. Yeah, but it's not just limited to software. That's why we have Hacktoberfest and open source to further bring the tech communities together. Sorry, I need to take a short break. I'm very sorry. Just a very short break. All right. Sorry for the interruption. So so we have authors, which are the creators of the project. Can everyone hear me? Because I need to confirm.
Sure.
Yeah, yes, we
Yeah.
can.
Yeah. All right. All right. So we have authors. Authors are the creators of the project. Then we have owners. The owners could be admin. The owners basically are like an extension of the author. The author could grant different people different levels of access or privileges to that particular project, because at some point some projects get open source projects get so big that just one person cannot manage it. Then that takes me on to maintenance. So maintainers are responsible for driving the goal of the project. That's just the base explanation for that. They could have different roles, but yeah, further an extension of okay, yeah, they are maintainers they're just responsible to further drive the goal of the project. Yeah, so we have contributors to those whoever people that fall under this contributors category, anyone that adds value to the project in any way or the other. It could just be answering different questions on that particular piece of software on whatever platform. That could be your own contribution. You could go on Reddit, you could go on LinkedIn, you could create awareness on that particular piece of software. You could answer people's questions, like check Google those questions and give responses to. That's your own role, but you are not coding. But that does not mean you are not a contributor to that particular open source project. Then we have community members slash users. So those are volunteer users or people that provide feedback about features, bugs, or any other thing. Basically, they're just people that actively interact with the open source project. Yeah. So I'm going to move on to things to look out for. Things to look out for when you want to contribute to open source. So you need to look out for the open source license. That's very, very important. Or if you're looking to create an open source project, you need to get a license, like an open source license. These are just like legal bindings or sorts of rules that just further make your project fall into the line of open source, and it kind of sets rules to how people can interact with the project. So moving on to readme or contribution guide. So this is likely going to be on the repository homepage, where it kind of gives a description or requirements or directions on how to interact with the project, because you don't expect 5,000 different people around the world to think the same. Understand? So likely going to be a rule or a mode of interaction with that particular with that particular repo. So you need to check once the open source license is there. So that means you're not infringing on any sort of right. You could check for the README, or sometimes it's usually in form of contribution. It could come in form of contribution, a contribution file, maybe contribution.md or something. But you need to spot out the file and get yourself accustomed with the style or directions or requirements that have been set for that particular project. Then code of conduct. This is just an extension of what I've spoken of before. It might not be there, but you can look out for it. If you find code of conduct here, so it's likely going to state rules on what you can do with that particular project and what you cannot do with that particular project. I don't think you're allowed to create like like monetize someone else's project because it's open source and all of that. You understand? So there are some limitations, but the basic idea behind open source is just bring about collaboration and all of that. Yeah, then you need to look into the programming language that was used to develop that particular open source project. You could be looking to contribute to VLC or something like that, and you find out the programming language, you don't have the skill sets to contribute to that particular language. So that's also a variable to consider when you are looking to contribute to a particular open source project. So moving on, number of contributors. Yeah, number of contributors is likely going to give you an insight on the number of people that are actively working on that repository. So the repository basically is just a store. Yeah, it's just a store where all the code for that particular open source project is bundled, and those are usually hosted on GitHub or Git GitLab, depending on preference. But most times, usually GitHub. So when I say repository, that's what I mean. It's just a store for all the codes. Then how often people make commits. So this could also give you an insight to know if it's an active project or an abandoned project. Understand? Because sometimes people just kind of lose the buzz they got when they started the project. So you need to take that into consideration too. Then number of open issues. Yeah, this number of open issues could give you insights on things that are left to be done or bugs that have been reported by testers. So if you are looking to contribute, you could just pick up one of the issues, then create one of the issues, solve it, and create a PR to the repository. So I'm gonna move on to oh, got to the end already. So basically, that's my presentation on open source and its contributions and Hacktoberfest, everything in general. So feel free to connect with me on Twitter. Here's my handle, or ask any questions. I think I'll just hand off to the organizers at this point. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Stark. Fem. Yeah, thank you, Stark, for speaking with us. I think we will be taking general questions at the end of the entire.
All right.
If that's cool with you. If that's cool with you.
Yeah,
Yeah, we'll be
that's fine. That's fine.
go nice. So in case you have any question, you might drop it on the chat, on our chat page, on Discord, so that you can have it documented down. So, Solomon, if you are ready to mount up the stage. Hi, Solomon. I don't know if you can hear me. Okay, I guess he's on stage already, so I don't know.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can you all hear me?
Sure, fair.
Yeah, good afternoon. Good afternoon, the lead. Good afternoon, Stack. Good afternoon, my technical lead. Yeah, so thank you so much, Stack, for that awesome presentation. I mean, you really tried. Kudos. Thank you so much. I mean, from what October first is all about, what is open source, um, to how the rules, how to contribute, things to look out for while contributing. I mean, really did a great job. We appreciate you and thank you for that. I think we'll be like waiting for Lord Ghost to like take on the
Hello,
I
session.
guess he's back.
Yeah, yes, yes,
can you hear
yes.
me
So
now?
yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, so our second speaker is Lord Ghost X. Is my friend. He's more or less like a brother to me. He has really helped me in a lot of stuff too. And currently he works at um Unstoppable Domains and he's a technical writer and he's very good. He's very good. So I would want you guys to all listen and and learn from him too. And he really has experience. He really has experience in comes up of front end, back end, and even the blockchain development. And I'm sure he has a lot to say. Yeah. So, Ghost, are you up?
Yeah, I'm up. Can
Yes.
you
So,
hear me once again?
Yes, we
can
can
we
hear
go?
you.
Like, yeah, we can hear you. We can hear you. You
Okay,
can.
okay, great.
Yeah.
Let
Yeah.
me.
You have the floor.
Okay, thank you. Let me share my screen now.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you see my slides?
Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Yes.
Sure.
Okay, okay, great. So I'll be talking about open source software. Just basically, let's just call this OSS 101. So, like, introduction to open source software, what it is, why you should be bothered about it, how can you get started with it. Basically, everything you need. Just basically like a primer on open source as well. So let me do a bit of intro. So I'm Solomon Essay, and then I work as a technical writer at Unstoppable Domains. And then what we do at Unstoppable Domains is we register domains on blockchain. And then there's a whole lot of other stuff that you can do with your domain. So now about me, so I'm a tech explorer with a team for Python and Golang. So I call myself a tech explorer because I spend a lot of my time trying technologies, experimenting with a lot of things, and just putting my hands wherever I can, as long as it's
Yeah.
related to tech. Then I also like writing, and I'm also into crypto, NFT, and then Web3 stuff, and then I'm still figuring my way in everything. So now let's start. What is open source software? Open source software, or OSS for short, refers to software or IT development, a software or IT development project with open source code that is freely available and everyone has permission to access, make modifications, and improve. So let me just simplify that. Let's say there's a particular software, and then that software, the source code is available online. And not only that the source code is available online, anybody can access that source code, anybody can make a copy of it, anybody can make modifications to it, and anybody can push it back for everybody else to see. That is what open source software really means. So it goes more than just having a piece of code or having a piece of software that the source code is available for everybody, but can anybody just access that code, copy it, make modifications to it, and then make that available for everybody else too. That is what OSS means. And these are examples of some common open source software that we know. It's Linux, MySQL, Firefox, Java, some programming languages too apart, and then a whole lot of other applications that their source code is online. Anybody can access it, anybody can make modifications to it, and anybody can improve it. Now let's look at some benefits of open source software. So first, it increases development speed. So you want to start a new project, and then let's go back to a couple of things there. So let's pick a software from here. Let's say WordPress. WordPress is for making blogs or building websites. It's basically a CMS for building websites. Now you want to create a blog or you want to create a new e-commerce website. Instead of you starting from scratch and all, open source can help increase your development speed. Instead of you starting from scratch and all of that, you can just go take an open source software, like modify it to your specification, and then develop your website. You are good to go. Open source is also cost effective. So a lot of open source software are free to use, and very few of them have like paid licenses. And even the ones that have paid licenses also have like free versions. The paid license is just like, okay, you want some premium features and whatever. But basically, you can start a project beginning to end and not have to spend any money at all simply because you are using open source software. Now, you get the ability to start small with open source software. What does starting small mean? You're starting a new business. You're trying out a new idea, a new startup, an MVP for something. You don't have to start paying for a lot of premium, you don't have to start paying for a lot of software just to develop your app or just to deploy or just to whatever. You can get started with open source tools. Just start with open source tools, and then when your project or whatever starts making money, or wherever or whenever you feel that, oh, we need to scale to like way a better solution or a way higher solution, you can scale up from there. But open source gives you the ability to start small. So there's enhanced software security in open source because everything is open source. All your code, all the software, and all are vetted by different experts all over the world. So you are rest assured that if you are fucking a open source project, if you are taking an open source project, if you are using an open source project, it is secure. But then this me saying it is secure, I'm not saying that every single open source software is completely secure or will forever be secure. I'm just saying that there's an enhanced software security with open source software when you start relating it to like some other private companies, alternatives, and the rest. So now companies also get to attract top talent. I've heard of people I even know people who got their jobs, or a recruiter reached out to them, a company reached out to them simply because they were making contributions to a particular project, or simply because their GitHub link is out there and a recruiter saw how good they are. So it helps company attract top talent. They get to see what you can do, get to see your experience, get to see your ability in the public, and see how your work affects other people, and see how good you are, and then they can come and recruit you from there. Open source also provides absolute transparency. If an app is saying that, oh, we would not take your data, you don't know if they are not exactly taking your data. The best thing we can do is just take them for their word that, oh, since they said they're not taking our data, then they're not taking our data. But if it's with open source, you can confirm by yourself. Everything is transparent that, okay, this app says that we are not taking the data. The source code is open. If they are taking the data, you see it in the code that they are taking the data and all of that. So open source contribution is also merit based. So merit based just means that, oh, it depends on how good you are. So it's not the kind of case where there's like politics on who gets a job or who gets to manage a particular team because of some kind of network or some kind of connection that they have. Like, it's open for everybody to access, open for everybody to contribute to. If you can, do it. Now, license management is also very simple with open source software. Now, what does license management mean? It just means that if you want to use a software and then there are licenses around that software, how that software can be used and all of that. With open source, the license management is actually very easy and very simple. All of that is completely simplified and then easy for you to get started and all. Now, another thing again, with open source software, there's an abundant supply of support when you run into issues. Let's say you are writing code with Python, or you're using some let's say some framework like Django or whatever you are using at all, and then you run into a problem. You can easily just go to Stack Overflow and just check for a solution there. You see a lot of resources that are willing to help you. And then this is not always the case for private and closed source software. Most of the time you have to like rely on their support, or you just hope that somebody else that is using that private software has fixed that issue and they've written about a solution that you can go and look at. With open source software, there's an abundant supply of support. Another thing again, there is no vendor lock-in and monopoly with software. Since everything is accessible, everything is free to use and all, like no particular company can lock it. Okay, let's say there's only one company that provides a particular kind of software. Now everybody's forced to use that particular company for whatever service they provide. That particular company can now decide to, okay, since they have the benefit of that monopoly, decide to hike up their pricing, do whatever thing they want to do, not attend to customer support, not just do whatever they want to do. With open source software, it is a completely different case. If one open source project is not active, they are not releasing updates and all, there will be other alternatives for you to fall back to. So now, you might be wondering, how does open source software impact your career? So first, you get to improve your technical skills. Either using open source software or contributing to open source software, you get to improve your technical skills, which will make you more employable and increase your seniority and just basically give you more experience in the whole tech space. Also, you get to turn your idea into a reality with open source software. And I mentioned something like that earlier, where I said you have an idea, you have a business that you want to start, and then instead of you thinking about all the whole course that you have to do, you can just rely on open source software to just get started, and then you can scale up whenever you feel like, oh, you actually need to scale up, or whenever you start making enough money to actually scale up. You get to also acquire soft skills by contributing to open source. So like when you're contributing to open source, you're now working with people all over the world, and then you also get to develop soft skills from there. You also get remote work experience. When you're contributing to open source, nobody's asking you to come into one office and work there or something. You work from your home, so it gives you that remote work experience already. And then also you get to increase your network, you get to collaborate with people all over the world, and then you can even get paid opportunities from contributing to open source software and even using open source software. So now, let me clarify some common beliefs about open source. So there are a lot of beliefs that people think whenever they just hear open source, this kind of thing comes to their head, and in most cases it's not even true at all. So the first one, a lot of people think that you can only contribute to open source software if you're a developer, and this is false, because open source software is more than code. Let's talk about documentation. there's a particular open source software, they still need to maintain a documentation. If you're a technical writer, if you're a documentation engineer, if you're somebody who works with documentation, you can contribute to open source by contributing to their documentation. You don't even need to touch code at all. Aside that, if you are a blogger, if you're a technical writer, if you're somebody who writes, who does some form of marketing, who writes thread on Twitter to educate people, you can also contribute to open source software by just educating people on that particular, on how to use that particular software, on how to use that particular product, or just basically raising awareness for that particular that particular open source software. Now, even if you're a designer, also a lot of these open source projects also need designers to come and improve their user experience, improve their UI, come up with a better thing and better design and all of that for them. So there's space for everybody. As long as you're in tech, there's a space for you in open source. It's not just limited to developers alone. Another one is that people think that only experts in the field can contribute to open source software, and then it is not for beginners. And this is also very false. I remember my first ever like PR that I made to an open source project. What did I even do there? What I did was that the example in their README file was outdated. So I think they like published an initial README before, then they updated the library afterwards, and then they forgot to update the README. Then when I was trying to use that particular project, I saw that okay, this example is outdated. Then I had to like go and check GitHub for like live source code of people using it in production and all, and I got like a working example from there. So I was like, oh, instead of me just leaving this repo like this, I just forked the repo, I updated the README, I created the PR, and then that project was merged. There's another one that happened. I was using this one happened last year. I was using I wanted to use MongoDB driver for Golang, and then I saw that a particular link in the README was linking to a 404 page. So like they changed the URL, they did not update the README, and all I did was just go and change the URL source where the URL was linking to, and then that was all I did. And then I tweeted about it, and then MongoDB sent me a DM to like tell me thank you for your contribution, and they even sent me swags just because I went to their README and updated a link. So it's not just about it's not just for experts. It's not as long as you're a beginner. What did I even do as my first one? I just went to edit an example code. I just went to edit a URL, and then everything still counts as open source contribution. Now, a lot of people also think that you are wasting your time contributing to open source, because open source is free code basically, or like as you're contributing to open source, nobody's paying you to contribute to open source, and also they just feel like you're wasting your time contributing to open source, and then this is also very false. So there are people who are paid to contribute to open source. There are people who get paid opportunities from contributing to open source, and there are some people who just pick up open source project in their free time and just solve an issue or something, or they encounter an issue and they just decide to fix one of the issues or something. Just contribute to open source as a whole. So you're not wasting your time contributing to open source at all, because there's a whole lot of benefits waiting for you. Now, another one is designers cannot contribute to open source software. This is another false thing. There's a lot of space, there's a lot of demand for designers in open source software. The same way every company needs a designer, or every product needs a designer, every open source software also needs a designer to create their initial UI and all, do UX research and all, to improve their product, to improve the open source software and all of that. And then there's this other one, that the tools used in open source are too technical. In some cases true, in some cases false. I'll see my example again. The first open source contribution I did was to update a README file. So don't say it's too technical. Just do what you can do, and then when your experience increases and or when you become more senior level, you start to work on even more advanced things in open source. So now, let's talk about how you can get started with open source contributions. Basically, how can you start making contributions to open source projects? So it's basically 3 steps. Number 1, find open source projects to contribute to. Number 2, join communities, collaborate with other people who are also making contributions to that particular open source product, or the community of people who even use that particular product. Learn from each other and grow. And number 3, make meaningful contributions. And then also remember, quality is greater than quantity. Don't bother yourself about making 100 PRs to a particular product or a particular open source project. Focus on this PR I'm making. Is it actually solving a problem that this open source project is facing, or is it fixing an issue, or in a way is whatever I'm doing going to be beneficial for the product at the end of the day? And then here are some resources that to like get started with. Some resources that just basically help you whenever you are contributing to open source software. And then let me go through all of them one by one. So our first is Hacktoberfest. So now this is another thing I want to talk about. So Hacktoberfest is this event that happens every year in October, where a lot of open source companies, a lot of open source organizations use this particular event, use this particular month to like promote. Let's just call it like Open Source Awareness Month, that kind of thing, where they just promote how open source is good, why you should contribute to open source and all of that. And they do a lot of events, and there are even rewards that you can win from contributing to open source products in the month of October. So you can always just come to this website, register. But let's just go through a couple of things here. So it has started already. This is October 5. It started October 1st. And then you can join the Discord. This is what we mean by joining communities, networking with other people, collaborating with other people. You can join the Hacktoberfest Discord and meet other people all over the world who are also contributing to Hacktoberfest. What else? You can follow this link to learn how to participate in Hacktoberfest. But basically, what it means is that go to projects on GitHub that have a Hacktoberfest tag. They just basically, that Hacktoberfest tag just will highlight that, oh, this project is asking for people who are involved in Hacktoberfest who can contribute to them. Find them, find an issue that you can fix, submit a PR for that issue, and then Hacktoberfest would reward you for your contributions. And then there are also like Hacktoberfest events. You can find all of this information on the Hacktoberfest website. And then there's like a whole lot of other things on the platform for you to just look at. But so to like summarize what Hacktoberfest is, it's an event that happens in October that aims to promote open source contribution to developers, to tech people all over the world. So now, let's look at another one. This is firsttimersonly.com, and then what this platform does is that it gives you links that you can easily follow to find good first contributions. So you might be wondering, for Hacktoberfest, what issue should I solve and all? This particular resource would give you a whole lot of links for you to get started. So you have a whole lot of resources linked. So there's this other one, ovio.org. So what this platform does is that it helps companies find, it helps projects find talented contributors. So it just helps them find good people in the space. And this is what I talked about earlier, that it can help companies find top talent. Contributing to open source, if you are good in whatever you do and you're contributing to open source, you would land, companies would reach out to you very well. There's one particular story that Prosper Otemuyiwa told at Fest in 2020. It was talking about somebody who was always making contributions to Angular, always answering Stack Overflow questions, always solving issues and all, and the rest and the rest and the rest. There was not a particular company who was not looking to hire a very senior Angular developer, and it did not even take them time to even find out the guy and then even like bring him on board and just say, oh, come and join us and all. So there are other resources here. Open Source Friday. So Open Source Friday is people who just every Friday, some people will just come and just say, oh, let's just dedicate a few hours to contributing to open source projects. So you can always just come here and join them and then see how that goes, and then you can get to interact with other people, other fellow open source contributors like you from here. So there's a codetriage.com, and what this platform does is that you can use it to like subscribe to projects that you like, and then whenever there's a new issue on them, it would alert you that, oh, your favorite project has a new issue, do you want to solve it and all, and then you can come and see other platforms, other projects that have issues, and then you can just jump on any one of them and get started. So there's opensourcedesign.net, and then this is a platform for designers who want to get into open source. So there's a whole lot of resources, a whole lot of projects, a whole lot of things, a whole lot of resources here for designers who want to get into open source. So now there's this other platform again, this other resource again, also for non-programmers. It just basically contains a whole lot of resources for non-programmers who want to get into open source and all of that. Then there's a link to the slides here. So if you want the slides after the talk, I would also paste into the chat section. So the slides are here, bit.ly/open-source-talk. So you can access these slides at any given point in time. And then I'll be rounding up here. Thank you. And then you can reach me out. You can reach out to me on Twitter at LordGhostX, GitHub at LordGhostX. My name is Sudomonesei on LinkedIn. And then here are the link to the slides once again. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Ghost. Let me see. Okay.
Yeah, I'm still here. Thank you so much, like Ghost. Yeah, thank you so much. Really talked broadly, like you really opened our eyes to open source. So SS 101. Yeah, I love that. Yeah. Yeah, thank you so much. Over to you, Daniel.
I don't think there is any question. In case you have any question, maybe you can just drop it in the comment section. I will just be looking through the comment section for the next 20 seconds in case there's any question. Okay, I think there's one on Grand Stack and the Ghosts. So someone is asking if answering questions on Stack Overflow is also part of open source contribution.
For me, I would say yes. It's also part, because you are sharing your knowledge to other people who use that particular software or who use that particular open source project or whatever.
Okay, good stuff. And that's true, because I've seen people requesting Stack Overflow links before, for developer Stack Overflow links before.
Yeah, and also like all those like answers on Stack Overflow also serve as documentation. A lot of us, whenever we enter an issue, a project that we're working on, before you open the official documentation, we've already gone to check Stack Overflow and we've already gotten our answer from there. Some of us have not even seen how the documentation of some projects that also of some frameworks that we use even look like. You just have an issue, Stack Overflow, and in a way that also serves as documentation for that particular project or product or whatever.
Oh, cool stuff, cool stuff, cool stuff. So after now, we'll be sharing the slide from both Stack and Logos. Lord Ghost. We are so grateful that you made it to our event today, Glasses and Solomon, and we hope our members and the community in general have learned a lot about open source contribution. We hope that going forward, we can also contribute to open source in any way we think we can. Also contribute to open source any way we can. I don't know if Abdulaziz, our lead for GDSC, is available to speak to us right now. I don't think there is any further question. So in the next few hours, you get the live recording of this session on our YouTube channel. Also, you get the live recording session of this on our YouTube channel. So Abdulaziz, any other comments?
Actually, no. Thank you all for joining us today, and thanks to the speakers. We really appreciate your presence. And to our community, we'll be having our next event on October 9th. That is 30 days learning challenge. You can also register for that. Yeah, thank you.
Oh, great. So I think that will be all for our session today. I'm so glad to have you. You can check up our Twitter page for more information about Oktoberfest. During the month of October, we'll be sharing a lot of information about Oktoberfest. We'll be for as many things that we think you can contribute to, either as first timer, as first contributor, or as veteran contributors, because there are some that have been contributing for like 2 years. So just follow our YouTube channel, follow our Twitter channel, and we hope to see you next time. Hope to see you back to my life. Thank you so much for joining our session today. So that will be all for now. Bye everyone.